Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Lewis Beck. Welcome back to 343 TV and to Hybrid Home Studio. This season of 343 TV is drawing to a close, and so this is going to be the second to last episode. And so I figured, in light of that I was going to cover something that is fairly undercovered, I think, but a lot of people have a lot of interest in, right? And that, of course, is vocal recording. Now, as always, first off, if you're here, say what's up in the chat. I am currently pulling it up right now so that I can start talking with all you lovely people. And yeah, just say hello, because I love knowing who's here. All right, Samuel, what's up? And Mukathiro, I hope that I'm pronouncing that right, or Mukat Hero? I don't know. I like that. Anyway, so what we're going to be talking about today, right, is recording vocals. And it's actually, so real quick, right, is for those of you who are, new to the show or just happen to stumble upon this, or for those of you that have been watching but maybe don't fully know, right, 343 Labs is a school, and we're a music school based in New York City and in Berlin, and we do specialize in electronic music production. However, as I was teaching at the school, one thing that kept happening was a lot of people would come up to me during the courses or after the courses, and say, hey, like, when are we going to talk about vocals? I'd love to learn a little bit more about vocals. And so, this kept happening more and more and more. And finally, I got together with our fearless leader, Max Wild, and I was like, hey, I think we should build a vocal production course. And I actually constructed that course myself. And so what I'm kind of going to do today a little bit is take some of the things that you'd be learning in that course, which of course, is a 12 class course, and try to compress a little bit into this session. Now, one of the things that obviously we're not going to cover everything, and this is more about like recording vocals in your home studio, how to get a good tone, how to make sure that you're getting something that you work with to start from that's that's usable. Because one of the main things with vocals that a lot of people don't really get is that where you start is the most important factor in there where you finish, right? Now, that actually is pretty much true for like the entire music production process, but it's especially true with vocals. And so all that I really mean by that is make sure, right, that you're starting with quality. Anyway, so real quick, just to cover our bases, right? If you if you've been watching the channel a lot and you're into what we're doing, please hit the subscribe button. As you can see, we've got tons of great content, and we love just continuing to build the community. Anyhow, let's go ahead and get started. So I have actually, you know what? Before I jump into the DAW, we can do a little bit just right here. So this is kind of like a checklist that you're going to want to keep track of, right, when you are working on recording vocals, right? And if you're new to this and you're someone who's aspiring to do so, or if you've tried and you're like, okay, I'm having a hard time doing this effectively, then here are a couple things that you just want to make sure you have. So actually, let's jump into the DAW, because then I can make a little notepad for you guys, and you can just have a little peek at this. So first thing that's like really important, right, is just where are you recording? So as you can see in my room a little bit, right, on my, where am I guess, okay, on that side there's you can see some paneling and stuff, and behind me, I got my two big purple panels, and there are two on either side of me as well. A lot of baffling kind of all over the room, right? Hey, what's going on, John Kingston the Third? Welcome back, man. Always good to have you. What's up, Luis? Good to have you back as well. And so, yeah, so first things first, right, is just where are you recording, okay? So there are a couple things to bear in mind with that is like, what is the natural reverb in the room? Right? Is there natural reverb in the room? Then, like, how much background noise are you contending with? Now, I actually have a pretty quiet room in here, which you probably can hear on the stream. There's not too much there's not like really a noise floor in terms of air conditioning and stuff like that. Oh, that's awesome, Nefertiti. Yeah. So, one thing to do is look, like it's the 21st century. The biggest record of last year was recorded in a bedroom, like literally. Billie Eilish's, debut album was actually recorded in her bedroom with her brother. So, anyone who tells you need to go to a studio to record quality vocals, to like make a hit record is lying to you or selling you something, right? And so my whole philosophy, especially these days when I'm teaching people, is like, how can I give you the most amount of information to maximize your situation, right? You don't always need to spend money. So anyway, so with that being said, right, there are a couple things that you do need to spend a little bit of money on, right? So the number one thing that everyone knows, right, is a microphone. So like, what microphone are you using? And this is important. Is it a dynamic mic or a condenser mic? So I don't know if any of you guys know the difference between a dynamic and a condenser, right? But the main difference, right, is that a dynamic mic is less sensitive, designed for live performance, actually. And also, it does not require external power. Now, that's kind of a formality at this point because everybody pretty much has some sort of device, whether it be an audio interface or a preamp that allows them to record, rather that allows them to feed phantom power, right? Which is, of course, what a condenser mic is. So a condenser mic is externally powered with 48 volt, right? Or phantom power. Same thing, by the way. So if you're ever like looking up an interface and you're like, does it have 48 volt? Does it have phantom power? You don't see both words, you only see one of them. Well, that's because they mean the same thing, right? So behind me, the microphone that I'm going to be using today to demonstrate some vocal stuff is a Telefunken CU29 Copperhead. That's kind of the nickname for it. And it's a tube microphone. It's a tube condenser. So it has an external power source. All that means is you actually have to take your XLR cable and plug it into a power source and then run it into your interface or your preamp or whatever it is that you're going, right? So that actually brings me to my next point, right, which is something that's really, really important. So yeah, that's a great point, John, right? Is that directionality is super important, what we call a polar pattern. So polar pattern on a microphone is very simply just like where it picks up volume from with particular bias. And so by bias, I don't mean like system bias. I mean just literally with like directional bias. For those of you that were going to call me out on that potentially. So the next thing is, it's really important, is something called a preamp. Now, a lot of people probably are not familiar with this, and this is actually one of the most important things in vocal recording. So basically what a preamp does is it boosts the signal of a microphone. Now, a microphone signal is actually really, really weak. It's a super low electrical signal, right? So the way that a microphone actually works, right, and this is just kind of cool to know, is that there's a little diaphragm inside the microphone that responds to SPL, or sound pressure level. The higher the sound pressure level that travels into the microphone, the more of an electrical signal that is generated, right? So basically the diaphragm vibrates, which subsequently vibrates this capsule, and then, oh, hey, what's up, Regine? And then that generates electrical signal. Like I said, that electrical signal is super, super low. So what ends up happening is you need something called a preamp to boost up the signal to line level, which simply means that it's loud enough to be recognized by speakers and such things. And so, so preamps are a little bit weird insofar as you have, most audio interfaces at this point have preamps built into them, right? There is a difference between a classical analog preamp, right? Something like a Neve or an API or SSL or a Pacifica, or you can rattle them off for years. Versus a, like a Focusrite, okay? And so the main difference here to kind of understand is that this process is the most important process in terms of the vocal signal, like fidelity, right? And it's so much so that you'd be better off owning a really high quality preamp and a medium quality microphone than a really high quality microphone and like a not so great quality preamp. A really good preamp will make a decent microphone sound great, and a really bad preamp will make a great microphone sound not good. So one of the reasons for this is essentially that in that process, right, where you're boosting up the vocal, boosting up the microphone signal, a lot can go wrong because you're boosting it by literally like hundreds of degrees, sometimes even thousands of degrees. And so when you're doing that, right, a lot of times what can happen, if you've recorded vocals on a Focusrite, for instance, you've probably realized that I can actually demonstrate this for you right now because this microphone that I have right here is coming in through a Focusrite that I use just for streaming. And so if I were to start turning down the preamp, you'll notice my voice starts getting quieter, and then all of a sudden, you can't see this. Here, I'll show it to you. So this is the preamp, right here. You can't even hear what I'm saying, really at all, right? I have to get really in there for you to hear it, whereas before I was sitting back here. The more and more that I turn this down, the quieter and quieter and quieter it's going to become, which is how a preamp works. But the thing is that you're suddenly going to reach a level where it just gets really, really loud, like right about there. So that's bad. You don't actually want that. What you want is something that responds linearly, right? So every step of the gain supply process, so to speak, right, that the preamp is feeding, is going to be, you want that to be even and linear, right? So every time you go up, you want it to be really smooth so that you're always capturing a full vocal recording. So one thing that I often recommend to people who are using Focusrite, Scarletts, or stuff like that, and by the way, Focusrite itself is not a bad company at all. They're actually an excellent company in terms of, creating audio products. It's just that they're lower level. So that's the thing. A Scarlett 2i2 is not particularly good for this. That doesn't mean that you can't record a vocal with it, but you're going to have certain challenges that you might not have if you're recording with a higher quality preamp or a higher quality interface. So the two interfaces, or there are a lot of interfaces at this point that work really well, but the main one that's like really renowned for this is obviously the Apollo by UAD, right? And so what that also gives you is it gives you modeling options for preamps, right? Now this is cool because you can get different flavors, and so the thing is that when it comes to analog audio equipment, the main thing that when people talk about analog and this company versus that company, they're really talking about is basically the different style of circuitry that's being used to ultimately achieve the same goal, right? So you can have tube preamps or solid state preamps, or preamps that use transistors, preamps that have transformers in them or don't have transformers in them, yada 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 yada. It goes on for a long time, but essentially, that's the thing, is that you're not on a 2i2, as Rashane is saying, by the way. What's up, Rashane? You're not going to get a consistent level. So what you're going to start noticing is that certain words that go above a certain level are going to be really loud, and certain words that fall below a certain level are going to be really quiet. So essentially the dynamic range is just not represented well. So with an Apollo, it works really nicely. with a Apogee Duet. It works really nicely with a Antelope Audio, which does a very similar function to the UAD. You get a good one with the Slate Digital, which has a really interesting thing with it where you can buy a specific microphone from them that doesn't actually really have much of a character. Then you can assign character to it in the DAW even after the recording, which is fun. And you can also swap around the preamps and stuff. Slate Digital, that stuff sounds really good. So yeah, I mean, that's just something to be aware of. Unfortunately, in fact, a lot of this whole convo, Scott is in many ways directed at people who have a Scarlett. It's just not a particularly great preamp that they have built into it. So it's not about analog versus digital. There are digital preamps that are awesome, but as you can see on the back of here as well, there are line inputs on the back of the Scarlett. So the one thing I will say is that the conversion on the Scarlett is fine. I mean, is it mastering grade conversion? But when I say conversion, I mean like analog to digital, right? So converting your audio that you're recording into digital audio and then feeding it back to you. Compared to what the highest quality converters were about 20 years ago, this thing is better, actually, or just as good, believe it or not. So, what you can do, what I would recommend doing is if you already have a decent microphone, would be pick up a preamp. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. You can get a good one for probably, somewhere between $400, $600. I know Rashane picked one up, ironically, from Focusrite, right? So actually the one that I'm going to recommend is a Focusrite ISA 1, which sounds super nice, super affordable. Another good one is the Heritage Audio HA73. And so this is a preamp that is modeled off the Neve 1073, which is pretty much the most famous probably preamp ever. Now, the other thing that you can do, which I've been recommending to people more and more, I don't have a ton of experience with it personally, but I do know that it's pretty nice. This SSL2 thing where it comes with analog preamps built into it. So that's really cool. So that's an audio interface with preamps built in. Now, my recommendation, if you have neither an audio interface or a preamp, or if you're just thinking about upgrading your audio interface in general, would be grab an Apollo from Universal Audio. A couple reasons for this. One of them is because they give you this app called Console, and we're actually going to be using this. I'm going to use this today to demo some stuff, where you can actually insert EQ and compression before you hit the DAW. That's really important because we are going to talk about something called input compression. And input compression is something that's going to really make a huge difference in the quality of your vocal. So anyway, let's just go ahead and get started. If you have any questions at any time, about some of this more technical stuff like the gear and want some advice, by all means, just lob in a question into the chat. But yeah, so just to close that off, right, is if you are going to go the route of an analog preamp, what you can do is you can feed the output into the line input in your interface, and then you will just have this nice, clean analog enhanced signal. But, don't for 1 second think that you can't get a great vocal recording just by using the Apollo. You can. Again, the Billie Eilish record was recorded using a TLM 103, which is like a decently expensive mic. It's like just over $1,000, and an Apollo from UAD, and you can get. I've recorded with them many times. They sound great. Anyway, so I'm gonna leave that up there for a little bit. What we're gonna do today, and this is actually kind of fun, is I don't think that I've ever actually worked on something that is my own project live before with you guys. I actually happen to have the hardware one that's similar to the Neve is the Heritage Audio HA73. They actually basically just replicate Neve shit. That's like what the whole company does. They came out with like a really cool bus compressor as well. That sounds pretty nice. Doesn't sound like the one they were modeling particularly, but it sounds cool. They also have this thing called a 1081, which is a slightly different flavor. Also really nice. Yeah, I mean, it's something worth exploring. There's just a lot of stuff out there. But generally speaking, like the Heritage Audio I literally have sitting in front of me, that's what I'm going to use today to record this. So you'll be able to hear that. Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to be recording vocals on a track that I'm currently working on to show you how I would go about doing this. So a couple of things that are important to note, okay? One, if you're recording vocals for yourself, it can be a little bit of a different process than recording vocals for yourself, but another person that is singing for you, right? So I'm, of course, going to be tracking myself. And there are a couple things that you kind of have to, take into account while you're doing that. So one of the main things that I recommend to people who are recording vocals is that you either do not record vocals in the project that you're working on, right? Like open a whole new project, or record vocals very early on in the process in that project. So you can look here. I basically have no processing on any of these instruments, right? This is all just 100% live tracked, right? I think I pulled out a resonant frequency and sidechained my bass to my kick. That's it. So the reason I'm saying that is because there's going to be no latency in the system, right? So one thing that you're trying to avoid, like especially when you're recording audio, not trying to avoid, one thing you have to avoid, quite frankly, is latency in the system, right? So another really important thing, okay, so I'm glad I just did this, is your buffer size. You're going to want that to be at 64. What your buffer size determines is how many samples your computer is going to process before it feeds it back to you. So believe it or not, if you turn it up as high as 128, you will hear latency. There will be a delay between what you're saying and when you hear it back. And it's going to be doubled, and it's going to be weird, and it's going to be impossible. Now, something to also note, the RAM in your computer and the quality of your audio interface will also dictate how much latency you have round trip, right? So if you want, you could also go 32, which is basically no latency. But the thing is that 8.4 milliseconds versus 9.8 is fundamentally not a difference at all. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this. And I'm going to, of course, change my output to my multi-output device so that you guys can hear me and keep my input with UAD. All right, but yeah, so first thing really important, make sure your buffer size is as low as possible. You really don't want any 128 you could get away with, but you really 64 is where you want to be. So again, another reason for tracking vocals either in another project, like a fresh project, or in very early on in the process is so that, your computer isn't freaking out from all the crazy plugins that you're using. So even if you don't have latency, maybe you're using, like an Acoustica audio plugin or something that is going to make your system completely go kaput. And so, it's just a good idea to make sure that you have enough processing power to not even have to worry about latency or anything like that. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to record it in this project, okay? And so what I'm going to do is, in Ableton Logic doesn't matter. It's the same approach that I have, at least. I'm going to create a group for my whole track. I'm going to create a submix for my entire track. I'm not going to name it because it doesn't matter. And the only reason I'm doing this is so that I can turn everything down together really, really easily. Because what's going to happen is that when you're tracking yourself, especially, right, you're going to need to turn that vocal level up quite a bit so you can actually hear what's coming through in the microphone. And you're going to, as a result, get a really, really loud signal from the music, which is, like, at least for me, I don't like that. I don't like it to be loud unless it needs to be, right? And also, it's going to create microphone bleed, right? So, or headphone bleed. So basically, the volume from your headphone is going to bleed into your microphone. So the first thing I'm going to do is literally just turn down the whole track. Now, next thing I'm going to do is slap on my cans, because you do not want to keep your speakers on you don't want to keep your speakers with volume up when you open up a track that is armed with your microphone on it, because that's going to create a feedback loop, and you're gonna wish you were never born. It is so painful and awful. It just creates this surge of woo like that. So I'm just selecting my correct input here, right, which is input 5, and I'm just gonna hit input monitoring, and as you can see, there's some level coming in, right? That's because I have the microphone cranked and I have pad mode on. I'm gonna turn that off. Turn that way down. Okay, so for now I'm just gonna turn it off. Again, I'm using a Heritage preamp. It's on my desk right in front of me. I wish I could show you, but I can't. I'm so sorry. I love you all. So the next couple things that I want to talk to you about are also microphone positioning. So, and also, again, coming back to this idea of like where you live and what your recording environment is. So for instance, there's a dog barking in the background, which you can probably hear. And you can also hear me actually now talking, not just through here, but through there. So I'm going to take this microphone. Woo! Oh no! I'm going to bring it over here. All right. So that sounds super juicy and really distorted because I have the preamp turned up all the way. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that way down. I just wanted to turn it up so you guys could hear the dog. So you could see what I was contending with. So, hello. That sounds a lot friendlier, a lot cleaner. So, first off, one thing to be aware of with recording, home vocals is that you're going to have a dog barking in the background sometimes, right? That's something you just can't control. So, unless you live in the middle of the woods or something, but then you might have a deer rustling. Like, I don't know, So, there are some things that you can do to mitigate these circumstances. One of them, first off, is to kind of like the little more ratchet way to do this would be you get two boom microphone stands rather, and you get some packing blankets and you put the mics really high up and in a T shape on either side of the microphone, and then you drape packing blankets, as many as you can, over it in both directions, and this actually will mitigate the background noise quite significantly. Now, there isn't really a lot of natural reverb in this room, as you can hear, right? I've done a pretty good job of killing it. And so, let's do it this way. Well, actually, do it like this. Yeah, and so, one thing that you can do is if you have a bunch of natural reverb, you want to get rid of the room noise and stuff like that, is you can use a Chaotica eyeball. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. And of course, what's fun about this is I can now talk to you through here. And so the thing with the Chaotica eyeball is it is basically a $200 piece of foam, right? So some of you might be like, fuck that. I am not spending all that money on this little circle that I can make at home. Well, a lot of people try to do it, and it's not quite as effective. I've used this thing a lot. I've released a lot of records. I released records with other people, produced records for other artists that using this. It's honestly pretty great, I'm not going to lie. Now, it does change the sound of the microphone. So I want you guys to kind of witness that with me in real time. So right now you can hear this like a pretty nice sounding microphone. At least I like to think so. It has a nice body to it. A nice smooth top end, but also like a nice low end if you want. And I'm going to give it a little more love in the gain department. I'm just going to turn up my headphones so I can hear it more clearly. Okay, there we go. We get a nice balance, I actually specifically bought this for my voice. I sing deeply, and so it picks up low frequencies really nicely. Now, of course, if you're not using this, really important actually, gotta make sure you have a pop filter, right? So for those of you that don't know what a pop filter is, I feel pretty confident you've probably seen what they look like. You've probably seen this somewhere in your travels as a human being. Let's get it off my mic stand for a second. Oh boy. Okay. Right, so this thing, this is so silly. I'm talking to you through like 2 different microphones. Okay, so it's just this thing. All that it does is make popping noises stop when they come through. I don't know if that works 'cause I can't hear this, but hopefully they did. So, right, you just want to put it onto your microphone stand. And the whole point of this is just to kill hard consonants. P's and T's and cuz and buzz, especially really P's and B's and D's, right? Anything that's going to have a high level of SPL at the start of the word, essentially. And again, SPL just means sound pressure level. So what you'd simply do is just put this in front of the microphone. Mine is really old and he's sad, so he doesn't stand up straight sometimes. Kind of just fiddle with it at times. All right, so let's try coming around from this angle, Mr. Pop Filter. So one trick that you can do, which is super ridiculous, but you know what? Like, you gotta do what you gotta do, is to like take a rubber band or like some sort of like t-shirt or something and just tie this over. But again, this is actually where the eyeball comes in handy, because it has a pop filter built into it. So basically what you do is, there's just a hole in the bottom of this thing right here. You just slip it over your microphone. And then this blue bit on the front is where your microphone comes in. So I want you to listen to how the sound changes as I put this over. Right, so you can hear it gets muddled, right? It gets much less open sounding. So that's just something to bear in mind. But it also gets more concentrated, and the lows get a little bit more, a little bit more dialed in. All right, so my mic keeps drooping. Let's try to control this. All right, so there we go. I'm gonna go ahead and actually pop this thing off because I don't think I need it right now. It's not loud. I'm sure as I say that, like, an ambulance is gonna start going off or something. All right, so a couple things that are important. One, have a microphone stand that is not old and droops forward every single time that you try to lift it up. So that's what's happening with me here. So I'm gonna have to tilt it back quite a bit. The boom. Yep, this is why I literally just ordered new microphone stands from Sweetwater. Plug. There is nothing more annoying than ordering microphone stands. It is the least sexy purchase you can make in music. It's just like, I don't need this. I don't want this, but I need this, right? Okay, so let's see if we can get this pop filter functioning. No, okay, he still doesn't want to play. Cool. So I'm actually going to go grab a rubber band out of my gear closet. There does not appear to be a rubber band in there. Let's try this some other ways. All right. I'm going to do something that I really don't want to do. Let's see. I might be able to wrap a cable around it. This is a terrible thing to do to a microphone cable. Probably should have ordered a new pop filter from Sweetwater. This thing, it's crazy, man. Sometimes it works and sometimes it just doesn't. So also it's like certain angles, it's different. Come on now. Making me look bad on, there we go. Okay. Now I don't have to desecrate my Mogami cable. All right, so we're in business. So a couple important things is I'm actually, when you're tracking yourself, a couple of really important things. You had duct tape, right? When you're tracking yourself, you want to be able to see in real time the levels that you're coming in on, right? Because levels in recording are super, super important. So I'm going to write another little note down for you guys. You're going to want to come in at a level of between essentially negative 18 dB and negative 6 dB. Basically what that means is you want to have your peaks ideally go no higher than negative 6. They can, but it's better if they kind of hover in this like negative 9 area. Between negative 12 and negative 6 is a great area for your vocal recording to be. And for that, and also just for most recordings in general. So one thing I'm going to do to ensure that actually is come into my console app, and I'm going to put on some input compression. And I'm going to do some very basic compression with the LA2A, which I absolutely adore. It has a super juicy sound to it. It does increase the volume a little bit, so that's something to be aware of, which is kind of annoying. And so what input compression is for is just to ensure that, like, on the way in, if you start getting louder, right, that you don't get too loud and clip, and that you can maintain a nice overall average level, which is what we use compressors for a lot of the time, especially in tracking, right? This is a whole separate area of music production, which is live recording, but it's good to know these things. So I'm going to turn my gain reduction up just a little bit. I'm going to see if I kiss that. Basically what I want is that it should at no point in time get more than 3 decibels of gain reduction, and most of the time it should barely be doing any gain reduction. Hello, hello. All right, yeah. So when I really get louder, right, you can see that the volume gets pushed down. And if you watch right here on this channel, right, you'll notice that I shouldn't clip or even come in danger of clipping at any point in time, because when I get really, really loud, it compresses it more, right? So that's really cool. That's the point of input compression. So that's basically like when it comes to vocal production, when it comes to, oh man, I shouldn't have touched this. When it comes to vocal production, using a compressor is very, very important, because what you're doing is essentially you're making the vocal kind of have more power, more energy, and also be able to fight through the mix a lot more easily, right? Because one of the biggest problems we have, right, is having the vocal be loud enough, but also not be too loud to the point that it is sticking out, right? And so this is kind of early on in the process, a really good way to make sure that your vocal is already coming in ready to be produced. Now the other thing, right, about this, which is cool, is that like this has a little bit of vibe to it. This is going to tighten up the vocal, also make it warmer, give it a little bit of coloration. I personally love that. You can't really go wrong with an LA2A, especially on vocals. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into my DAW, and I'm going to take my lyric notebook, because I forgot the words that I'm going to be singing, which is great, because I wrote them. And I'm going to click play. And what I'm going to do is make sure that in the headphones, right, I can hear myself really clearly over the volume of the music. And so I'm turning it up enough so that I can hear my voice now And in general, when you're recording, you want to be about 6 to 12 inches away from the microphone, right? So I'm a pretty good level against the background music. I think I'm going to turn up the background music a little bit more so I can feel the vibe a little bit. Alright, so how are we doing in here? Cool. Alright, I'm feeling pretty good about this, volume-wise. Who are you talking to me? Alright, cool. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give myself about 8 bars to just like get into it. Also, my voice is not warmed up at all. So that's something to be aware of, is always warm up your voice before you sing. I've been talking a lot though, so maybe it'll be... I'm going to do a quick little exercise actually. So one thing that's a great way to warm up your voice is to do a little bit of this. You go, we are... You can hear how pitchy I am. We are... And you just go up to the scales. We are... We are, we are, we are. So as you kind of start moving up, your voice limbers up a little bit, and then go a little bit higher now. We are. And I get through my break. I'm not the greatest singer, so I don't exactly navigate that in the greatest way. Anyway, typically I go up and then down, and there's some other ones like woo, see, that's pretty bad. Anyway, all right, that's good enough. I'm feeling like I can actually sing things slightly clearly. All you do a little bit is basically do none of this in public and when you're live streaming. You look like a fucking weirdo.
Who are you talking to me? Do you even know what you're saying? Round these parts, seems to me, everyone's so damn crazy. Lo and behold, it's all been sold. Not what glitters, just what's gold. You and me, we're gonna see the end of what we're meant to be.
So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and listen back to what I just recorded, right? And so this is a lot easier to do, again, if you're not tracking yourself. Because when you're tracking another artist, right, it's a lot easier to hear in real time, like, oh, this is loud enough. Oh, this is too harsh. Oh, this needs a little bit of that. Oh, this needs a little bit of that, right? So I'm going to go ahead and listen to this vocal now and see how it sounds.
Who are you talking to me? Do you even know what you're saying? Round these parts, seems to me, everyone's so damn crazy. Lo and behold, it's all been sold. Not what glitters, just what's gold.
Right, so you can actually hear the headphone bleed in the background. This is a little bit loud. Not a problem, because it's perfectly aligned with the music, so you're not going to hear it. One thing I will say, though, is like these are a little bit quiet. So I'm going to boost the output of my compressor. Super important, right? Don't boost the output of your preamp if you're using tracking compression, because all it's going to do is make it compress more. Okay, let's see. What window are you talking about, Nefertiti? Which one? Just let me know. Yeah, anyway, so I'm going to turn up the output gain on my compressor and see if I can get a little bit more level coming in. So let's try that again. And it appears that my heater, my radiator, has now just turned on. So now there's yeah. So I was gonna be straight. Oh, it's the logic is the logic window not okay? Let's have a look at this. Oh wow, super weird. I don't know why that's so zoomed. Oh wow, really sorry about that, guys. Huh, super strange. Let me know if that's good now. Alright, yeah, I think that should be a little bit. Okay. I'm gonna monitor the stream for a second. Okay, yeah, there we go. Yes, as I was saying, my radiator just turned on. It was pretty bad because if you hear it, you can really hear that hiss. So in this particular case, I could try to put the eyeball on so you can at least hear, what it does. It doesn't really kill the background noise that much. What it specifically does is it kills the room reflections from interfering into the microphone path. Oh man. So I'm just gonna be totally honest with you. I would not record vocals right now, right? If this was my yeah, I wouldn't record vocals right now. That's a crazy sound. And let's identify it. It's pretty high up. It does gets rid of it a little. So man, yeah. I'm gonna be straight up. I just wouldn't record vocals right now if this is me doing it for myself. I'll obviously record them because we're on the stream. It doesn't matter. So before I go crazy with this, let's actually see how many of these are actually resonant. Yeah, that's still not acceptable for a recording. Now, what you could do, if you want to see something kind of wacky, you could pull on the Waves NS1. Oh, no more noise. But as you can hear, oh, that actually doesn't sound that bad. Yeah, that's the thing is you're gonna have to add back a little bit of that high end, but I think that's not that crazy. It's actually a pretty cool plugin. I don't love Waves, I'm gonna be totally honest, but they have a lot of very, very functional software. So for now, let's see. Yeah, even we can just do it like that still, which is going to give it a way more open and lush sound. I'm actually surprised that worked so effectively. And now my pop filter is not being a cool guy again. Let's try it this way. But yeah, these are the things that you have to contend with when you are, recording in your house. Is your refrigerator on? Oh man, this thing is really drooping. This thing has seen better days. This is actually making me feel a lot better about my recent Sweetwater purchase. Ah, look at that. Oh, no, doesn't work still. Come on, man. Yeah, a lot of the times you got to get a little bit contortionist with your pop filter. Just anything that works. Okay, anyway, so where were we? All right, I gave my microphone some more signal. So now I'm going to do, right, is I'm going to go ahead and, oh yeah, so you can already see those are some nice juicy levels coming in.
Who are you talking to me? Do you even know what you're saying? Round these parts, seems to me, everyone's so damn crazy. Lo and behold, it's all been sold. Not what glitters, just what's gold. You and me, we're gonna see the end of what we're meant to be, yeah.
So that's already looking a little bit healthier. We might even be able to get more level because I'm kind of doing this like whisper, you know, not whispery, but like kind of lower grade vocal. Yeah, so that's NS1 from vocals. The reason I wouldn't use the RX7 or 8, at least in tracking, is because that shit just has mad latency. But it works really well. So those are also great plugins. What I'm going to do is I'm going to engage the EQ on my preamp and cut out everything below 80 hertz because there's just a little bit of rumble. All right, so I'm trying to get a little bit more level again. There's some nice juicy levels coming in. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Justin.
Who are you talking to me? Do you even know what you're saying? Round these parts, seems to me, everyone's so damn crazy. Lo and behold, it's all been sold. Not what glitters, just what's gold. You and me, we're gonna see the end of what we're meant to be, yeah.
Yes, that's a pretty healthy vocal level right there. So, always good to record to like get levels, right? And then what I would actually start doing is I would start like really trying to get some takes in. So already did it. I kind of like the performance a little bit on that last one, but what I find is it's a terrible idea to only record one take of your vocal. There are just so many little weird things about vocal recording that are hard to get right. So many like inconsistencies in the in the performances and in the acoustics and stuff, just little clicks and pops and cracks, you know, that you're gonna want to kind of comp together. Usually your main vocal, unless you know you're working with like Mary J. Blige, and she just kills it or someone like that. And I'm not gonna pretend that I'm that good of a singer. So I'm gonna go ahead and just like do a couple of takes and show you like what I'm listening for and like why I'm doing it a certain way and stuff like that. Give yourself enough time to get back to the microphone. That's pretty important.
Who are you? Who are you talking to me? Do you even know what you're saying? Around these parts, seems to me, everyone's so damn crazy. Lo and behold, it's all been sold. Not what glitters, just what's gold. You and me, we're gonna see the end of what we're meant to be, yeah. Give me some of that. Some of that. Give me some of that. Some of that, yeah. Who am I talking to you? Do I even know what I'm saying? Seems to me you know the game, but it ain't the one I'm playing. Open your eyes, it's just a disguise. The same old truths and the same old lies. Follow me and you're gonna see the style of what we're meant to be. Come on, give me some of that. Some of that. Give me some of that. Some of that. Some of that. Give me some of that. Some of that.
Yeah, exactly, Ivan. Super important to be able to figure out workarounds, right? Yeah, so these levels are looking cool. I would like listen back just to see how that felt, you know.
Who are you? Who are you? Talking to me? Do you even know what you're saying? Around these parts, seems to me everyone's so damn crazy. Lo and behold, it's all been sold.
Yeah, so that sounds pretty nice. But I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of record now, like 2 or 3 more versions of that at least, right? And so what you'll start noticing is that your performance will kind of just get better every time. Or not every time, but you'll hit a sweet spot of probably 2 or 3 performances that really feel good, where like your enunciation is clear, your phrasing is good, your volume output is consistent, stuff like that.
Who are you? Talking to me? Do you even know what you're saying? Round these parts, seems to me everyone's so damn crazy. Lo and behold, it's all been sold. Not what glitters, just what's gold. You and me, we're gonna see the end of what we're meant to be, yeah.
And so like one thing, you know, that I'm noticing already is that like my character in my performance is better, right? And so you just grow in confidence.
Give me some of that. Some of that. Give me some of that. Some of that. Who am I talking to you? Do I even know what I'm saying? Seems to me you know the game, but it ain't the one I'm playing. Open your eyes, it's just a disguise. The same old truths and the same old lies. Come with me, you're gonna see the style of what we're meant to be, yeah. Give me some of that. Some of that. Give me some of that. Some of that. Give me some of that. Some of that. Give me some of that.
So for instance there, right, at the end, thank you very much, Regine. I really appreciate that. Damn, what was I just saying? Yeah, so this is where the input compression becomes your best friend. So right, I started getting a little bit more like excitement into my voice. One thing I do a lot in my music, and to be totally honest, I do a lot of like dynamic things. Like I'll scream or shout or like make a certain word really loud, because there's a sort of like rock and roll aesthetic a little bit with a lot of what I do. And so you can see right here, it caught those peaks. We came super close to peaking. 0.8. It's like a little loud, but it caught it. And so that's the most important thing. And so what you can do is after the fact, you can go through and you can you'll pre-mix the vocals. So I'm gonna do one more recording just so you guys can kind of get the full sense of like having some vocals to comp, and then I'll show you really quickly how I prepare these to start producing them.
Who are you talking to me? Do you even know what you're saying? Round these parts, seems to me, everyone's so damn crazy. Lo and behold, it's all been sold. Not what glitters, just what's gold. You and me, we're gonna see the end of what we're meant to be, yeah. Give me some of that. Some of that. Who am I talking to you? Do I even know what I'm saying? Seems to me you know the game, but it ain't the one I'm playing. It's all a disguise. Same old truths and the same old lies. Follow me, you're gonna see the style of what we're meant to be. Come on, give us some of that, some of that. Give us some of that, some of that. Give us some of that, some of that. Give us some of that.
Yeah, so Regine, to answer your question, like I either recommend you record the vocals far along in the production, but in a new project altogether, or record the vocals very early on in the project, so that there's no latency and that it's easy to kind of manage the volume levels and the relationships. So there was some clipping there, you know. So one thing that I would honestly do is I would probably actually turn down the level of the incoming signal to manage that. Also, though, with that being said, I'm like kind of screaming and doing some, not like fully screaming, but doing some little more like moments, and that doesn't always sound bad with distortion on it. So I'm not necessarily against that, as long as you're not peaking here in your main part of the vocal. So what I would now do is, and this was really cool about Logic, although coming soon to Ableton 11, also going to be really cool, which is you have the comping, right? Now, I would typically do more performances. I was starting to get the feel. So, I would try to get a couple of these again. But what I can do now, right, is I can go through here.
Who are you talking to me? Do you even know what you're saying? Round these.
And now what I can do is I can turn the volume all the way back up, right, on my sum, and just flatten it completely. Get rid of the group. And you'll notice now that my vocal is suddenly not as loud because I turned everything else up.
Who are you talking to me? Do you even know what you're saying? Round these parts, seems to me, everyone's so damn crazy. Lo and behold, it's all been sold. Not what glitters, just what's gold. You and me,
I'm glad, Regine.
we're gonna see
Thank you. I appreciate
the
that.
end of what we're meant to be, yeah.
So what I would do is, right now you can hear that the vocal is actually like quiet, right, compared to where it was loud. That's purely because I just turned the volume back up and all my other information. And again, one of the reasons it's good to do this earlier on in the process, right, at least from a creative standpoint, well, not just a creative standpoint, actually, from a just like actual gain structure standpoint, is that like I can get my vocal level
Talking to me, do you
much more
even know
appropriate.
what you're saying?
balanced against the rest of the record.
Round these parts, seems to me, everyone's so damn crazy. Lo and behold, it's all been sold. Not what glitters, just what's gold. You and me, we're gonna see the end of what we're meant to be, yeah.
So now I have a pretty healthy mix level, right? It's not too loud. I tend to try to mix a little bit quieter. Anyway, so yeah, what comping is, right, is it allows me to just quickly go through and pick words from different, parts of my performance.
Who are you?
So I can see where was my best who are you?
Who are you? Who are you? Who are you?
That one sounded cool right here.
Who are you? Talking to me, do you even know what you're saying? Talking to me, do you even know what you're saying? Round these parts, seems to me.
So I'm liking this performance.
Round these parts, seems to me.
So I don't like that parts, so I can go and do this.
Round these parts, seems to me. Everyone's so damn crazy. Everyone's so damn crazy. To me, everyone's so damn crazy.
Yeah, I kind of like it like that, a little bit more like casual.
Everyone's so damn crazy. Lo and behold.
Anyway, you get the idea. So what I would go through is I would go through here and I would comp the vocals, and then I would export them as a single file in the project, or bounce them out in place, and start working with the vocals from there. So that is basically all that I got for you today. Again, I am Lewis Beck and Justin Beck, and a host of other names. I go by the artist name Sylvan Paul, if you want to check that out. Put out a bunch of new music recently. And I hope this was helpful for you, and if you were tuning in, which I know many of you were from before, welcome back. And if you were new, well, welcome to 343 TV. Like I mentioned, next week is going to be the last week before our new season next year. But there's still a bunch of time to catch some great content. We have Max Wild streaming tomorrow, and a bunch of other great instructors from the roster streaming later this week, and of course all through next week. So if you dug the content, please subscribe to the channel. We're just kind of trying to build our community more and more, especially now in COVID, right? There's such a great kind of online music community that's been building more and more. We'd love for you to be a part of ours. So if you're liking especially what I taught today a little bit and what I went through today, you might want to look into taking the vocal production course with me at the school. And so you can jump on to 343labs.com and check out all the courses we have to offer if you think you're ready to take your music production skills to the next level. All right, well, that's all for me today, and I will see you guys next week for the final episode where I teach you how to make your analog synths sound dope. Peace.